Joining us right now, we are at the quarterway mark of the TV47 Daily Report. Tonight with me, Victor Muyakane. And I'm sure you've noticed a change at sign language. We had the gentleman with his sign, his name is Kevin. Now we have, of course, Rhoda Nyamai. Now we go over to Kitengela, where activist Bob Njagi has narrated his ordeal at the hands of his captors for 32 days in total. In an emotional press conference, Njagi narrated how he was thrown into a dark room, barely 6 by 4 feet in size, and he was stripped off with his hands cuffed behind his back. And as our reporter Samira Mohammed gives us the details, he says it was after 2 days that he was offered water and food. Let's take a look.
I was left on the floor, handcuffed at the back and blindfolded for 2 days.
The anguish of a broken man, the heart-wrenching story of a man shattered, and topping pain of a man who's left marooned, shattered in an aftermath of the Gen Z-led anti-government protests, where extrajudicial killings, abductions and arrests were recorded in the country.
People, we are the people. People power, higher power. People power, higher power.
According to Njagi, on August 19th, he was jacked out of a matatu at Mlolongo bus stop on his way back to Kitengela by 4 masked people who wanted the matatu passengers from recording anything, but a few of the passengers recorded the incident.
The officers shoved me out of the bus forcefully while assaulting me with kicks, blows, slaps, jacking me off my feet and carrying me shoulder high into the awaiting white car. The officers had cautioned other passengers not to take any photos or videos. However, some passengers managed to secretly record the incident.
And after the vehicle drove for some 30 minutes, he arrived at his destination, where he was thrown into a dark room, barely 6 by 4 feet, where Njagi says he was stripped and his hands cuffed at the back, where he stayed this way for 2 days. No food, just a little water.
Inside the white vehicle were 5 men, 2 in the front and 3 at the back. We drove for close to an hour, while all the time I was assaulted until we came to a sudden stop. I was then blindfolded and handcuffed at the back and moved into a second awaiting vehicle that had 4 men. 2 sat at the back on either side and 2 at the front. We drove for complete silence for another 30 minutes until we arrived in our destination. 32 days of terror. I was whisked away into a building and ushered into a small and very dark room. It was the size of 6 feet by 4 feet. I was left on the floor, handcuffed at the back and blindfolded for 2 days without food, only some water. That was
people power, higher power. People power, higher power.
And after these 2 days, his hands were cuffed, but now in their natural front position. He then stayed in the dark, tiny room for 30 days, where he was being offered tea in the morning and a meal at lunchtime, a meal that barely kept him alive. And for the 30 days, he would be taken out once a week to have a 10-minute shower, then returned for the lockdown at the tiny house.
On the 3rd day, the handcuffs were removed from the back side and my hands were cuffed on the front side. I was then moved into another room. This is where I stayed locked up, handcuffed, blindfolded for the next 30 days. The room was completely sealed with no light during the daytime or nighttime. The only human interaction I got was when the door would be opened twice a day. In the morning, they would open and hand me a cup of tea while removing the waste bucket and replacing it with another one.
It was on September 20th at around 12:30 a.m. where he was picked from the house and bundled into a waiting vehicle. And this was the first time Njagi was dressed fully since his capture. They then drove for 30 minutes before he was ordered to get off the vehicle. And according to Njagi, it was freezing outside, and by then the cuffs had been removed and his hands tied with a plastic cuff, which took him a while to break free and remove the cloth that covered his face, and later managed to get to Tigoni police station, where he recorded a statement and managed to call his family members, who came take him home some 2 hours later.
On September 20th, 2024, at about 12:30 a.m., 2 men came to the cell and asked me to get up and get dressed. I was then taken outside the building into an awaiting vehicle. They removed the handcuffs and replaced them with plastic tie knots, but I remained blindfolded. We drove around the vehicle for about 30 minutes in complete silence. Finally, the car stopped and one of the men informed me that they were going to release me. In about 15 minutes, I got to Tigoni police station. It was there that I reported the matter, which was booked in the OB. I requested the officers to contact my family. which they did.
Samira Mohammed for TV 47.